This is Would You Rather School Edition. Oh, this should be a lot of fun. Let's begin. Would you rather go to school for 5 days a week or go to school for 3 days a week, but with longer hours? Would you rather be popular but have bad grades or be unpopular but have good grades? Would you rather take a hard class with your friends or take an easy class by yourself? Would you rather cheat on a test and get 100% or stay up all night studying and get 60%? Would you rather have a lot of tests or have a lot of projects? Would you rather take a difficult class with a fantastic teacher or take an easy class with a terrible teacher? Would you rather attend a class face-to-face or have an online class instead? Would you rather have a long school day with lots of breaks or have a short school day with no breaks? Would you rather take a bus to school or walk to school? Would you rather have no homework ever again or have no exams ever again? Would you rather be a varsity player at school or be part of the student council? Would you rather have only one teacher all day or have several different teachers? Would you rather have good grades or have a lot of friends in school? Would you rather have an assigned seat in your class or be able to sit where you want in class? Would you rather attend an art class or have a music class? Would you rather attend a class with your best friend or be in a class with your crush? Would you rather do a presentation in front of the entire school or write a research paper on a difficult topic? Would you rather have a class that requires a lot of reading or have a class that requires a lot of writing? Would you rather go to school early in the morning or go to school late in the afternoon? Would you rather have a small class with only a few students or be in a large class with many students? Would you rather take a math test or take an English test? Would you rather be the smelliest kid at your school or be the most annoying kid? Would you rather take an easy class and get an A or take a difficult class and get a B? Would you rather do a group project or do a project by yourself? Would you rather be the top of your class or be the most popular in school? Would you rather go to a school that requires a uniform or go to a school with no uniform required? Would you rather attend a science class or attend a history class? Would you rather spend your free time in the library of your school or spend your free time in the gym? Would you rather go to a big school far away from home or go to a small school nearby your home? Would you rather have a teacher who speaks too quietly or have a teacher who yells loudly when they talk? Would you rather have a locker in school or have to carry your books around all day? Would you rather have a pop quiz or have a test you know about in advance? Would you rather be academically inclined or be good at sports? Would you rather have a test every day of the week or have one big test at the end of the week? Would you rather be able to choose what classes you take or have the school pick for you based on your previous grades? Would you rather have a small field trip every week or have one large exciting field trip at the end of the year? Would you rather have to write a long poem to read to the class or create a science project that you share with the class? Would you rather live next to one of your teachers or go away once a year on vacation with your principal? Would you rather be the funniest person in your class or be the toughest person in your school? Would you rather have to take a test without being allowed to use any notes or have an open book test with much harder questions? Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching.